Good evening. Today is Wednesday, March 9th, and time is 6:30 p.m., and I am calling this meeting of the Macomb Township Board of Trustees to order. We will now say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Posey, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Trustee Cusimano.
Here.
Trustee Lucido.
Here.
Trustee Oliver.
Here.
Trustee Nevers. Present. Treasurer Drollet.
Here.
Clerk Posey here. Supervisor Viviano.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? Motion by Clerk Posey, supported by Treasurer Gillette to approve the agenda. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the bill run. Is there a motion to approve the bills?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion on the bill run? Hearing none, there's a motion by Trustee Oliver, supported by Trustee Nevers, to approve the bill run. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to approval of the previous meeting's minutes from February 23rd, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Motion by Trustee Nevers, supported by Treasurer Gillette, to approve the previous meeting's minutes. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to public comment. If you have a comment on an agenda item, this is for agenda items only, please make your way to the microphone on the right-hand side of the room. Please remember, you have a 3-minute time limit, and state your name and address for the record. If you are participating remotely and wish to digitally raise your hand, you will be called upon when we have time.
Hello, Jay Lamke, 46759 Mill Point. I'm just going to read a letter that I sent to each of the board members by email. It says, in regards to the resolution involving a smart opt-out, some people have said that it is fine because paratransit service will continue. I beg to differ. If we opt out, SMART will no longer provide this service. Lots of senior citizen handicapped residents need this to maintain any kind of independence. With the upcoming amount of senior living locations increasing in the next few years, it will become even more important. Some have told me that we spend $200,000 plus for paratransit. They say this money will still provide the service. If I'm not mistaken, most of the money comes from municipal transit credits. The credits are funneled through SMART, and to continue them, we would need to start our own transit agency. I realize the big buses do not operate in the township, but they do surround us. Residents can take the bus north to Myers and other stores at 23 Mile Road and south to Detroit. They can also transfer east and west at Hall Road and all the mile roads. Not only can people with limited means use this service to get to work, shop, go to the doctors, as well as other destinations. With the desire to increase business in the township, people will need buses to get to these jobs. We live in a township that has many comfortable residents, but not all are. Remember, seniors and handicapped people vote, and they will remember who took their buses away. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Good evening. My name is Kathy Western. My address is on file with the clerk. I'd also like to speak to item number 15 about the resolution proposing an opt-out of smart services. It indicates in the draft resolution in the packet that the Macomb Township Board would be requesting the Board of Commissioners to not approve placement of a smart millage on this year's election ballot unless provisions are first enacted to allow Macomb Township to opt out of smart service. And I don't know if the County Board of Commissioners has the discretion when SMART comes before them to put something on the millage to say to them, we won't put it on unless you word it this way. I presume that Treasurer Drollet is way better positioned to know the answer to that question, but this was new news to me. The question about the door-to-door shuttle service. Now, last July, there was a public discussion, and SMART was before you, about those local shuttle services. During that meeting, the representative from SMART stated, everybody in Macomb County pays a mill for this service. And during that meeting, also, our supervisor confirmed by saying that the funds being allocated, the approximately $200,000 we're talking about, are, quote, part of the SMART millage. So there is a lot of murkiness and confusion about that piece of the funding for SMART, and it is an essential part of the service. I would also like to ask you about the first sentence of the proposed resolution, because it says it's a priority for the Macomb Township Board of Trustees to ensure, quote, transit challenged residents to be provided adequate and needed transportation. Now, the phrase transit challenged was new on me. I don't know if we have such a survey of that with the census or SEMCOG, but I can tell you that Dr. Google also doesn't know the phrase transit challenged. And I don't know if this was an attempt to be politically correct, gone amok, or what that means. But if you could, in your discussion, define transit challenge and what that means to you. And I'd like to suggest that perhaps the phrase that could be used is residents who want to use public transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening that's present? See no one. Is there anybody remotely?
No, sir.
Okay. Having no one else, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. We have a motion for the consent items.
Chair, I move the consent agenda in its entirety.
Support.
Any discussion on the consent items? Hearing none, we have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Lucido, to approve the consent agenda. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on, we have a public hearing. This is to request for a request to adopt a resolution for the establishment of an industrial development district for 16024 Angelo Drive, parcel ID number 0818400025. So first, we're going to hear a little bit about it. Mr. Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, board members. About a month ago, we had a request from the Applied Photochemical Company to have an industrial development district established for their parcel that you just mentioned. And the reason being is that they're doing a 23,000 plus foot expansion to the footprint that they have. Now, the current building that they're in is not eligible for an IFT. However, the expansion is, and that would allow them to be able, if after the district is created, to move forward with applying for a tax exemption certificate through the state after coming before us in a public hearing and hopefully getting a resolution passed on their behalf. But the first step in doing that is establishing an industrial development district, which is why we're here tonight. They've gone through all the department head reviews. Everything seems to be in order through building and assessing. So with that, I would request that you would approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce.
You're welcome, sir.
Any members before the board before we open the public hearing? Nope. All right. At this time, we are going to open a public hearing on this item. Anyone who wishes to speak may approach the microphone on the right-hand side of the room or raise your hand digitally if you're participating remotely. I'm now opening the public hearing, and the time is 6:40 PM. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Eddie, anyone wish to speak?
No, sir.
No. Seeing that there is no one who wishes to participate, I'm going to close the public hearing, and the time is 6:40 PM. Do we have a motion at this time to adopt a resolution for the establishment of an industrial development district for 16024 Angelo Drive?
So moved. Support.
Any discussion on the motion? Clerk Posey, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. Trustee Oliver?
Yes.
Trustee Lucido?
Yes.
Trustee Kuzimano?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Treasurer Drollet?
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes. Supervisor Viviano?
Yes, that resolution is adopted.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Moving on to new business. We have a request to approve the update to the 5-year financial projection and the 1-year rate design for Macomb Township's Water and Sewer Department. This is from UFS, which is Utility Financial Solutions, in the amount of $17,000. Do we have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Support.
Mr. Wangland?
Thank you, Supervisor Viviano and board members. Water and Sewer is in front of you, asking for permission to approve this agreement or enter into this letter of engagement with Utility Financial Solutions. It'll be for $17,000, which I might add is the same amount as last year. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wangland. I just want to add a couple things. I talked to Ms. Lund, who's, we all know has been our water rate consultant for the last number of years. She initially submitted a renewal for her services. After talking to her, she agreed to hold the rate from the previous contract. I also told her at the time that my intention was to go out for bid next time we have need of these services. So for those who are concerned about this contract, we are going to take this out to bid after this cycle is over.
Mr. Chair, this particular contract is a 1-year contract rate design. It ends, do you know when the expiration is on it?
We typically, Jerry, would be about June or so, or July, we'll have the rate done.
Correct. I believe the direction the board gave Jim and I was to get this rate increase more on track with the fiscal budget. So I believe that directive was from last fall, and that's what we're doing here. Obviously, we're coming to you quite a bit earlier than I usually do, but for good reason, and obviously board direction from last fall. And we expect to probably present rates the last meeting in June, probably.
Is that about right?
Yes.
Yep. And when would the rates take effect?
July 1st.
July 1st. So that gives us sort of a short window. It was one of the reasons I'm for approving this contract, because I just honestly don't think we have time to go out for bid on it now. But going forward, we'll go out for bid and we'll look for, some competitive, companies and see what else there is to offer as far as rate design services.
Would any objection to adding to the motion an amendment that would state that future contracts will be, or at the expiration of this specific contract, that we will go out to bid for the subsequent contract?
I don't object as motion maker.
It's Charlie.
Charlie?
No objection.
Peter?
No objection.
Peter continues the support, so yes, we can make that amendment.
I would need a second to my amendment.
Second.
Thank you for supporting the second amendment.
Just wanted to say that. Any discussion
To the amendment?
to the amendment or the original proposal? The original motion?
Mr. Chairman, I've got some questions.
Sure.
I noted that there was a disclosure of the rates that were charged, but not a breakdown of what the time that was being expected to be billed. Is there any information from UFS that indicates how much time she intends to spend on it? And I'll caveat that with this analysis that I've basing my comments on. and my questions on. When you do a top-to-bottom rate analysis for a 5-year capital improvement plan, there's a certain amount of work and labor that's required. Once that is in place and approved, then I suppose there's a review where numbers of the municipality as to what improvements and expenditures have taken place are placed on the spreadsheet and moved up one forward year. So there would be a significant less amount of work to be done from year to year after the initial investment in the plan that has been adopted. Can anyone answer how much time she intends to put on it, that we're paying her the same rate that we paid in order to develop the 5-year CIP?
Well, we can't speak for her. The proposal, I think, speaks for itself. It's a flat rate. However, we did have the discussion internally. Jim and Jerry had done the rates in the past. And Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but our discussion was when Jim and Jerry were doing it internally, they were putting somewhere amongst themselves and with help of their departments north of 30 to 40 hours at a minimum. But Jim's observation was they weren't going nearly as deep as Dawn does in her analysis and her detail. So time-wise, if you break down it by her hourly rate, it seems reasonable.
Let me ask it this way. I'm questioning whether or not we could even just do this in-house. She stated the premises of her analysis, including the ratios for bond indebtedness. Isn't it just filling in the numbers for her that we get through the chair to Mr. Van Tifflin? Isn't it just giving her the numbers to fill in and moving it forward 1 year?
Yeah, so on my desk here is the packet of information that we sent to Dawn last year between finance and water and sewer. It's got the water and sewer department budget, both actually 2 fiscal years worth of budget in here, capital improvement program, the information that we get from the county. She analyzes all of that. She, does a deep dive into the water and sewer department's finances, not just what we're getting from our service providers, but also looks at water and sewer, which previously that wasn't part of the analysis when Jerry and I were directly involved in it. She's looking at it much more closely. And when she gets up to the microphone and presents it to the board, she does say that it's defensible. And that's why she can say that, because she's looked at all the numbers.
My question is, on the spreadsheet for 5 years, 4 years are static. In other words, they're carryovers from the year before. That's my only objection to this proposal, is I think there should be a significant discount, given the fact that intuitively there should be a lot less work involved in just tweaking the numbers and projecting the numbers moving forward a single year. So in other words, I don't believe that the amount of time that's being expended is comparable once the plan is established. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Guzmano. Any other comments or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to Mr. Van Tifflin, based on that, you've done this before, more than 1 year, correct?
Yes.
In the beginning, and at that time, you had to, if I recall correctly, you had to contract a lot of your engineering work to a contractor to allow you the time to do it, correct?
Yes, yeah. I did it both as a consultant and then as a full-time employee, but yes, it takes time away from other things.
So having done it before and having kind of maybe a template, similar to what we're referring to, would you agree that it took less time the second year, or is it still require the same amount of attention to detail and time?
In my opinion, you have to spend the same amount of time. Yeah, you don't have to set up a spreadsheet once the spreadsheet is done, but you still have to look at the numbers and then do the analysis and make the proper recommendation. And a lot of times those are options, and Dawn does, internally, she brings options to us as to what we can do, what she recommends, and then what she would be comfortable with. And so there's a lot of back and forth that happens during that, evaluation period. before it actually makes it to the township board. So we've beat it up quite a bit before it comes to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
If I could just ask a question to Mr. Van Tiffelen and Mr. Wanglin, either one, because I value both of your opinions very much. I mean, do you feel if we did it in-house, there would be a substantial savings when you, I mean, and I don't mean to have you figure it all out right here and right now, but, you know, in a general sense, do you see a significant savings to do it in-house?
I think if we did it in-house, we would come up with an approximate number, mostly based on what our service providers are increasing to us, their service. To go into the analysis of the water and sewer department budget and try to project what's, you know, the capital improvement program, all those things, I don't think Jerry and I have the knowledge, you know, the financial background to really do that justice. We've had some discussions about that. We can get something that's close, but whether it's defensible, whether, you know, we can fully justify it from a financial standpoint is a different discussion. So it's based on, I guess my opinion is how much risk does the township board, you know, willing to run because the farther we go out without having a financial person look at it, the more risk that we run that somebody can challenge it, and we don't have the expertise to back up the recommendation.
Thank you.
So,
Anecdotally, and just to continue, and I'll let you finish, but, you know, in the insurance business, people can go online and purchase a policy through Geico or whatever, I don't want to get into companies or anything, without an agent. They can purchase it directly. I feel, as an insurance agent, that person that you can rely on for their expertise is worth, even if it was a little bit more money. And so I'm in favor of having somebody with that outside expertise and not having to pull our staff away to do the same job that we could contract out to an expert. So,
okay.
thank you.
So just to add on to what you just said, in the process of discussing this with Jerry and Jim, it was not just their time that they had to put into it, but as the clerk accurately pointed out, there may be additional time with one of our engineering firms for the time that Jim was being taken away from his responsibilities. And in the past, when you guys did it, you handed it over to Plant Morant for a review, correct? So there's another contract involved. So while it might be a net savings over the contract amount, it's not a complete savings. We still have quite a bit we'd have to put into it. And with that, I'm going to ask Tim to weigh in. What's the value of having an outside expert review our water rates, given the climate that's going on today with all the lawsuits around town?
Well, as Jim alluded to, it's an issue of do you have the financial background as well as the engineering and water background to be able to testify as to the details in minutia that goes into determining those rates. As many of you know, or if you don't know, you probably should know, there's a firm out there that is regularly suing municipalities with regard to their water rates, their sewer rates, their stormwater rates, you name it. And these end up being very large class action lawsuits. At the end of the day, they bring it in the name of the ratepayers, but it's typically a money grab for the attorneys involved. And it's not about the consumer as much as it is their attorney fee. But nonetheless, that's why they're looking and very active in bringing these lawsuits. Having represented a municipality that was involved in such a lawsuit, it's very costly to defend, and it's very costly at the end to settle, if you're going to settle. The best position you can be in is to fight it. And to do so in this realm, you're going to need an expert. And you want an expert that's going to be able to testify to all the details that go into that analysis in depth. So for me, for my purposes, it protects the city from liability to a much greater extent for a fairly small price, quite frankly, in the overall realm of things from a dollar-cent standpoint, at least from a legal perspective.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. So, I mean, from my perspective, not to put too fine a point on it, but I understand this is a large sum of money. And I take that into consideration, but I think it's a value spend, and you know, we're going to do our due diligence and make sure we continue to get value by going out for bid next time around, but it's not something I'm comfortable leaving a gap year in our rate creation, our rate design, and just trying to kind of do it off the cuff for a year. So I'm in favor of this.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
You may.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
I had to think about it.
I share Trustee Kuzmano's, I guess you say question, that once a lot of work has gone into establishing a rate, that it may not be as much work the subsequent year to make adjustments to that work that was done in the previous year. I think that makes logical sense. But I don't necessarily have a basis because we haven't had an opportunity to review different providers, vendors, and so forth. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity in the future. I realize that as we're realigning this rate-setting process with our budget year, that we have a shorter window this particular year. So I'm willing to support this motion with the amendment that we'll be going out to bid in future years.
Mr. Chairman, one last comment. As part of my due diligence, I did a survey of recent cases from the Michigan Court of Appeals, which has roundly defeated many challenges, including a class action lawsuit which was recently filed against the city of Rochester Hills, I believe. In that case, the panel of judges consisting of Murray, Jensen, and Reardon upheld the summary disposition motion. I just asked through the chair to general counsel, in the case that he disclosed that he had litigated on this issue earlier, what was the result? And is it currently still in litigation, or is it?
The result of the litigation was against the city of Roseville for a stormwater ordinance. There was, and that was an ordinance that we relied primarily on the engineers to develop. There was an issue with that in part, and so the city did end up settling the case, and the original demands were to the tune of $6 million to be paid back, and it was resolved at less than half of that.
Now,
So-
that's not quite the same as what we're talking about setting rates and the latitude that the courts have given. I think I forwarded a copy of a link to the case.
I'm reading it as we're talking here. So you are correct. The summary disposition was upheld in this particular case with Rochester Hills. But there was a challenge to the reasonableness, and to that reasonableness, I'm just getting to that part, so I haven't read it yet, but I imagine there was a reliance on the experts in coming to that conclusion before the court.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzmano. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. Hopefully I get the amendment right, so tell me if I get it wrong. So we have a motion to approve the update to the 5-year financial projection and 1-year rate design for Macomb Township's Water and Sewer Department from UFS in the amount of $17,000, and to go out for bid for subsequent years for the water rate design.
Yes.
Okay. That was a motion by Trustee Oliver, supported by Trustee Lucido. To announce the amendments. Members, please vote. Motion passes 6-1 with Trustee Kuzmano voting no.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Mr. Wangland. All right, moving on to item number 10. We have a request to extend an offer of employment to Kevin Johnson for the position of DPW Director. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Who got that?
Me and Charlie.
Mr. Tabaka.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and board members. The Macomb Township Board of Trustees authorized HR to initiate the recruitment process for the position of DPW Director. The position was posted in accordance with the provisions of the ASME CBA. The HR department received 5 applications for the position. 3 candidates were invited to interview with the selection committee. The committee consisted of myself, Supervisor Viviano, Jerry Wangland, Jim Van Tifflin, and Dave Miller, the DPW Director from Shelby Township. and we are recommending Kevin Johnson for the position. If approved, it's contingent upon successful completion of all post office requirements, and the effective date will be this Monday, March 14th, 2022. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Tabaka. Do we have any questions or comments? No? Only thing I'll say, I was part of the committee. I think across the board, I remember the committee was very confident, very comfortable that Kevin is the right type of person and has the right demeanor, background, education, and experience to fill the very big shoes that Mr. Wanglin is leaving in running this department. So I'm very excited for the opportunity to have him come aboard.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I also would like to comment that it's in some ways a position that's evolved slightly to take on some additional responsibilities. So we're very enthusiastic about welcoming Mr. Johnson to our township and excited to work with him on developing this position and the work he's doing on behalf of taxpayers. But I don't think we can ever say anything about the position without, mentioning the work that's been done by Mr. Wanglin, who's served our community so ably and so long and so effectively, and we owe him a great debt of gratitude for how he's served our community. It's kind of a bittersweet. We've got a new people coming on board, but we're losing somebody we really who has really served us well at the same time.
Thank you, Trustee Drillette.
Treasurer Drillette.
I'm sorry, Treasurer Drillette. You sure? You got demoted when you weren't looking. Any other comments? All right. Motion by Clerk Posey, could be Trustee Posey soon, supported by Trustee Oliver, to offer the DPW Director position to Kevin Johnson. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Kevin.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I just want to mention to everyone that Kevin Johnson is in the audience. I'm going to wave to everyone. Congratulations.
Be the last time he's in a suit and tie.
Trying to show us up.
All right, moving on to item 11, we have a request to extend an offer of employment to Christopher Moylan as a utility worker. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Tabaka?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and board members. The Macomb Township Board of Trustees authorized HR to initiate the recruitment process for the position of utility worker. The position was posted in accordance with the provisions of the MAPE CBA. We again received 5 applications. 3 candidates were invited to interview with the selection committee. Again, myself, Jerry Wanglin, Ed Koning, and Kevin Misch. And we are recommending Chris Moylan for the position. If approved, it's contingent upon the successful completion of all post-office requirements. The effective date of hire will be on or after March 21st, 2022. And thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Tabaka. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, a motion by Clerk Posey, supported by Trustee Oliver, to offer the position of utility worker to Christopher Moylan. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Moylan. Moving on to item 12, we have a rezoning request. It's for residential one-family and general commercial to residential multiple family high density, which is permanent parcel ID numbers 0833-376-008, 0833-376-010, and 0833-400-043. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support?
Is there any discussion? Sorry, sir, we
Yes.
had comment before
Oh,
before this, so that the time for comment is done. I'm sorry.
well, it's the same because this request was denied at the planning commission
We-
board
we
last
underst-
week when I was here, and it was denied, but
We
7-0.
understand. We understand. Give us a minute. You'll see.
Okay.
I got a question for
Sure.
Mr. Bach. We've recently changed some of our zoning, and we've went to a conditional zoning. Has this company ever been in and sat down with our planning to try to set up some kind of conditional zoning on this property?
So can I interrupt there, Trustee Oliver?
Yeah.
Mr. Box, can you give us a little background before Charlie asks all his questions?
I jumped the gun on you. Okay. I've been through this once.
It's the
already.
green tie. I know it's confusing you. It's all right. We'll get there.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. So as you mentioned, this property is on Hall Road, a little bit east of Romeo Plank, actually just east of Twin River Drive. There are 3 parcels. Currently, 2 of them are zoned R1 and the other is C2 or general commercial. What they are seeking is higher density residential zoning. That zoning category allows 4 to 10-story buildings. The current master plan, the 2008 master plan, shows this property as future land use of commercial. The Cultivate Macomb master plan, which is your next agenda item, also shows this area as commercial. We did not feel that 4 to 10-story buildings in this area was a good fit, and staff thus recommended denial of this rezoning request. And the gentleman is correct. The Planning Commission did vote 7-0 to deny this request.
Okay. And just as a point of procedure, this is the normal course. The Planning Commission is a recommending board. We have to
Correct.
make the final decision.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry. And it was my fault. I asked for comment before I asked Josh to speak,
okay.
so my bad.
My question still stands.
So
Josh.
they did come into us before formally submitting the rezoning request to talk about what they wanted to do. But again, they submitted a rezoning, not a conditional rezoning. They did offer a condition at the Planning Commission meeting, which I guess I can defer to the Township Attorney whether or not that's even binding. But typically, if you're going to offer a condition, you would do so through the conditional rezoning process, not the straight rezoning process.
Mr. Chair, would it be appropriate to amend the motion so it says to deny this request?
I don't think it's necessary. I think you can just vote no,
Okay, thank you.
which I intend to do.
Okay, thank you.
So, just so we're
Just
all
a question
clear,
on the motion then. So
just
if we
because
vote no, are we saying,
we are denying the rezoning if we say no. Correct, Mr. Mr. Tomlinson?
You'd have to repeat the motion again.
Motion is to, it's a rezoning request to go from R1 and C2 to R2H for 3 different parcels.
And that was the motion that was made?
Yes.
So you would say no, correct?
Correct.
If you want to deny it.
So, just so we're all clear, everybody has recommended no. The developer is pushing this forward, even though everybody said no. I am inclined to follow both the Planning Commission and the staff's recommendation and also vote no.
So in the packet, it says the actual request is request to deny. I just want to make sure, we're not requesting to deny, we're requesting to approve, in which case if I vote no, we're denying.
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because in here it said request to deny, and I was like,
Who's
okay,
who's on
vote
first?
yes, but now I got to vote no. So I just want to,
Approve the request of the reverse denial of the
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for legal counsel through the chair. Is there any exposure here to possible litigation, in your opinion? I'm not asking for a definitive, but given the fact that there was such concerns voiced about possible litigation, and if we decided an issue without an expert on the water and rate and sanitary sewer rates, I think it's appropriate to ask our legal expert whether or not there's a potential for exposure.
There's obviously potential for exposure, and given the position of the petitioner moving forward in this manner without a lot of discussion of the conditional rezoning avenue, I would anticipate that we would be sued.
So I can add on to that, Mr. Cusmano. I had Mr. Aloya reach out to the developer's attorney because I saw that this was denied. I saw that it was on the agenda. I asked, is this worth even discussing tonight? Maybe we should postpone it. Ben reached out to Mr. Kalis. Mr. Kalis said the petitioner is not interested in negotiating at this time and didn't want to talk to us. So They just wanted it to go forward. I believe their intention is for it to get denied and to go from there. So I tried to have our attorney negotiate with them before we got to this point.
And through the chair, at any point, we could accept the conditional rezoning or negotiate that out and possibly resolve it. And through the chair, has anyone in the township received any communication from adjacent property owners in opposition to this?
I believe a number of them came to the planning commission. Can you tell
Correct.
us a little bit about that?
Yeah, several did show up in opposition to this, neighbors that would live directly north of this or behind this development. Several, I want to say 3 or 4, did get up and speak opposed to this development.
And through the chair, Mr. Bach, I think you indicated it's in the packet that this development would make sense in a commercial area, highly trafficked like Hall Road. Is that?
Correct. It's been future land use planned for commercial since the 2008 master plan. And again, that's what we're showing in the Cultivate Macomb master plan. And I guess I'll defer to Mr. Tomlinson on this, but I would say as much risk that you might have for denying this, you could also have risk for approving it because it doesn't match the master plan. So that at that point, the residents would have, I would think, a case to litigate as well.
Has the township granted either zoning variances or conditional rezonings similar to what's been requested anywhere else on Hall Road corridor in Macomb Township, to your knowledge?
Conditional rezoning is new as of about 1.5 years ago. We have gone through a handful of them. None of them have been on Hall Road, though.
And our tallest buildings on Hall Road are currently?
4 stories.
And
I believe
how
there's a
d-
hospital and a hotel that are 4 stories. Everything else is
Right.
2 or less.
And were those agreed upon zoning changes or were they consent judgments? Do we know?
I believe those were consent judgments.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, if I may address
Yep.
Mr. Bax, did they propose, I mean, from 4 to 10 stories is a big difference. Did they give any inclination as to what they were
They
looking?
did. As I mentioned, they did try to essentially offer a condition at the planning commission meeting that they would limit it to the 4 stories.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Peter.
I have one question, probably for Mr. Tomlinson. So if we vote to deny, and I hear you're saying that there probably will be a lawsuit, what would be the legal basis of the lawsuit if it doesn't fit our master plan and it doesn't fit our future master plan? Just, to be difficult, or?
I could make an argument for them. I'm not sure I want to put it in the public, though, what that argument may be, with all due respect.
If I could weigh in, they did mention at planning commission, their argument being that the commercial development is not doing so well right now, and that residential is doing well. So they felt that even though it's master plan for commercial, that it was a better fit for residential.
What I can tell you is that over the last, Jim and Josh can weigh in, the last 20 or 30 years, a lot of the developers have decided that going the route of a consent judgment approach is their easiest path to coming to an agreement with the municipality. I have avoided that since I've been here. I've had Mr. Aloya settle a lot of the open litigation, just to go out there and let's talk about it and come into an agreement without going through all of this process. But the developer in this case seems convinced that that's the route that they want to take. And, other than agreeing to the rezoning, which I don't think we should do, they're not leaving us much choice.
If I may, I feel torn to say, and I don't plan on voting yes to do it, but are we just delaying the inevitable? And I don't want to have to go
No,
through expenses and costs and everything.
I don't think so, because I don't think they have a great case to put a 4-story building next to some single-family houses. So they would, I think if they took it to court, they wouldn't get what they wanted. I don't think they really, my guess, they don't really intend to. They want
Trust
something
your
else.
judgment. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if I recall correctly, and I'd like to refer to Mr. Van Tifflin, this is the first time we've been faced with this, where the developer wants to take our commercial properties and turn them into residential, because they feel right now that the commercial market is less than residential. And I believe, or if I recall, when we were reviewing our master plan, we were limited already or lacking commercial space if we were to continually give it up for residential, which would eventually turn Macomb Township into what one could call a bedroom community without being able to provide services to our residents without the commercial properties. So isn't that's still an argument going forward?
Yeah, a lot of the argument that we're hearing has to do with COVID and how things have changed and how Amazon's going to take over the world. I don't, they said the similar things about industrial 20 years ago, and one of the biggest markets that we have right now is industrial. So maybe in the short term, that's an argument. We have had developers come to us recently and file lawsuits against the township pushed back, and for the most part, we've gotten the commercial that we wanted. One of them was the Meyer site. And we've had to come up with some unique ideas to try and make it fit into an area, but we have gotten commercial on a lot of those properties. So we don't know what the market's gonna do, but I think everybody would agree that we lack restaurants and a lot of commercial developments that other communities around us have, and we're in many instances bigger than they are population wise. So yeah, we're afraid to give up that commercial.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions, discussion? All right, we have a motion by trustee Oliver, supported by treasurer Gillette, to approve a rezoning request from R1 and C2 to R2H on permanent parcels 0833376008, 0833376010, and 0833400043. Members, please vote. Motion fails unanimously. Moving on to item 13, we have a request to adopt the Cultivate Macomb 2022 Master Plan. Finally. We have a
to approve.
motion.
So moved.
Support.
Go ahead.
Nancy's got it. Mr. Box, tell us about your baby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. So yes, after a long year and a half process, we have a final master plan in front of you seeking adoption. The last master plan was approved in 2008. They're supposed to be done every 5 years. So that was one of the key things that was on my plate when I arrived here at the township. So here we are looking for adoption. It's a long process. We did have a number of setbacks because of COVID. So we had to transition some of our public outreach to the Zoom meetings in the fall of 2020. We had 8 or 10 Zoom meetings. We also had a large public open house. We had 2 different surveys. We got a lot of feedback from the public. We got a lot of information about what land use and demographics exist and what to expect in the future. We took a deep dive at looking at the land use and what to expect, how the township might develop, and that resulted in the plan that's in front of you this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Box.
I would also like to add that our consultants, Carlisle Wortman, I know they're not here this evening. They did a lot of the work on this, and I want to thank them for that. They were awarded a contract for $118,000 to do this report. There might be another round of invoices, but it'll be a very small one if there is, and at this point they've spent about $87,000, so they're significantly under budget, so we certainly appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Box. Any questions or discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to acknowledge and express appreciation for our planning department, for Josh, the work he did in bringing this to fruition. I know it sounds like a very, very long process. I know there was many, many attempts ever since I was first elected here, reaching out to the public, ensuring that there was as much engagement as you could do, and a lot of work that went into it. So congratulations on
Thank you.
accumulation of a lot of work on your behalf. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, if I may, and I'm gonna guess maybe Nancy Nevers and Mr. Oliver share commending you for getting it done. I mean, we were board members up here for a lengthy amount of time where it was always getting there, but we actually couldn't get it, and it was a hindrance to the board and the zoning board and the planning commission on numerous occasions. So congratulations for getting it done.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I too, Christie superseded me in that remark, but thank you very much for the competence and the hard work, and I'm sure Jim had a lot to do with it as well. And so thank you. You're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Josh, one last thank you. We worked a long time on this with Josh and the planning board and back and forth and meetings and even all the staff behind Josh and Jim there put a lot of effort in this. We brought the public in on this many a times, and this was, I've done a couple of these, and this was very, very intense. And but it's a beautiful master plan. I think it's gonna fit Macomb Township really good and really help us grow. I think it is. So again, thank you, and thank your staff.
Thanks.
That's
Anything?
it
That's it?
for now.
I'm sure you'll have something in the comments to say.
I'm sure I will.
All right, if there's no more discussion, we have a motion by trustee Oliver, oh, no, wrong one. Motion by Clerk Posey, supported by trustee Nevers, to adopt the Cultivate Macomb 2022 Master Plan. Members, please vote. That motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Josh.
Thanks.
Moving on to item 14, request to adopt a resolution in support of Macomb Township's Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant application.
So move.
Support.
Treasurer Gillette, do you want to give us some background?
Sure. So the township has been working on an application for Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant that we would use to help develop Pitchford Park. We are applying for this grant through the state that would essentially build a path through the park that would connect the adjoining neighborhoods and the condo development to the north with the pathways to the park. And part of the process for applying for that grant is you have to demonstrate that the township is indeed supporting the application. So this is part of the procedure of applying for the grant. I've been working with Josh and our planning department, as well as some of the other departments and our grant writer as we move this grant application forward.
Yeah, thank you, Treasurer Gillette. Any questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by trustee Kuzmano. Clerk Posey, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Treasurer Drollet?
Yes.
Trustee Kuzmano?
Yes.
Trustee Lucido?
Yes.
Trustee Oliver?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes, and Supervisor Viviano?
Yes, that resolution is adopted. Moving on to item 15 is a request to adopt a resolution supporting the smart millage opt-out option. Is there a motion?
So move.
Support.
Treasurer Gillette, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I describe this in any more detail, I want to make sure people understand the scope of this motion or this resolution. This resolution would be essentially asking the County Board of Commissioners to provide municipalities like Macomb Township the same opportunity that communities in Oakland County have and Wayne County have, which is a municipal choice as to whether or not they want to participate in the smart millage. So this is not directly saying Macomb Township is opting out or should opt out. It's saying we would like the choice to be able to opt out. And I don't know, that's most of the municipalities in Oakland County have opted out of the smart millage. The majority of the communities in Oakland County have opted out and made a decision that for whatever reason it wasn't the right system for them. And 17 municipalities in Wayne County have opted out. The reason I'm bringing this forward now is in the last few weeks of the winter tax paying season, through February 14th, I had an awful lot of residents come to the window at the Treasury Department to pay their winter tax bill. And the winter tax bill, 10% of their winter tax bill was for smart bus taxes. When I looked at what our residents were paying in smart bus taxes this past year, it was $3.8 million. Our township has spent about $3.1 million in this past year on road projects and sidewalk projects combined. So our residents are paying more for smart bus service than they are for roads, for sidewalks. They're paying more than they're paying for parks and recreation. It's an enormous amount of money, but we don't have a fixed line bus smart stop in Macomb Township. Maybe there's one at the corner of Hall and Gratiot, but if you look at the smart service map, we don't have a fixed line bus service. What our residents, some residents do rely on is the shuttle bus service. The resolution is specific in that it states that we want to maintain shuttle bus service, which we currently contract with Lennox Richmond to provide through SMART. And if the process moves forward, and if we're given an opt-out option, and if we were to opt out, it's my intention to ensure that we continue to provide shuttle bus service like they have in Rochester Hills, Rochester, Lake Gorian, Auburn Hills, the 34 communities now, if Auburn Hills opt-out continues, that have opted out and do provide shuttle bus service in those municipalities. So I just don't think our residents should pay $3.8 million to not have a bus stop, and $211,000 for the service we really need, which is a shuttle bus service. So I'm willing to make sure that we have that shuttle bus service available to residents, but I believe we should move forward to give our community an option as to whether or not we want to opt out. And our community did vote in the last election, 2018, not the last election, but the most recent SMART renewal. The majority of our residents voted to opt out or not to support the SMART millage. But unfortunately, we were drowned out by the rest of the county. That millage ended up passing by 39 votes countywide out of over 150,000 votes. So I think we should move forward and ask that our residents and our community have the option to decide what works for our municipality, what works for our residents, what works for our community. And we do that acknowledging that we are still committed to making sure those people that do need some help do get that help.
Thank you, Treasurer Gillette. Does anyone wish to comment, or go ahead?
I had a question to Treasurer Gillette, if you could. Could you elaborate? One of the residents came up and asked a question about a meeting that we had back in July, as far as where the funding comes from. I think there may have been a mistake early on in that meeting of where the funding for the shuttle bus service versus the actual mainline bus service comes from.
So we receive municipal and community credits, two separate funding credits that come through our vehicle gas, part of our gas taxes that we pay, and part of our vehicle registration fees that we pay. And SMART is the administrator of those funds that give them to us. But in those communities that opt out of SMART, they come directly to the community. So municipalities, like I talked to the mayor of Rochester Hills, they use their municipal credits, their community credits, to help provide shuttle bus service. So it's, right now that service is provided through SMART, but if in opt-out communities, they use those credits for shuttle bus service.
Thank you. And one other thing, it also came up in the comments that SMART was here that day in July. That was not SMART. That was Richmond Lennox. They are not. They don't work for SMART. They're not part of SMART. They are from Richmond Lennox.
There was one of each. So there was
one that was talking at the time.
Mr. White was here. He's from Richmond Lennox, and Mr. Barbrett was here. He's recently retired, but he was from SMART.
But the gentleman that we were talking to that does the shuttle bus service.
That is Mr. White. Yes.
He's from Richmond Lennox.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clear that up to make sure that we were on the same page.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. If we let's say, we're just taking step one now.
Right.
Okay, but let's say it keeps going forward and we're out.
Right.
All right? But let's say if SMART says you lose your shuttle too, are we prepared to get our own shuttle, or how are we gonna do that?
I think we would have to look at our options to be prepared to do that. The majority of municipalities in Oakland County that opt out do that, find ways to either band together, provide shuttle service. You look at Washington, Bruce, Romeo, they have a small millage that they provide for shuttle service for them to enhance their shuttle service. We may be able to join with, Bruce, Romeo, Washington. I believe that Shelby Township does not use SMART for their shuttle service. They use their municipal credits for their own, to run their own shuttle service. So we may have to look at options like connecting, to look for efficiencies with Shelby Township. So there's multiple ways that other municipalities have found ways to provide that shuttle service.
So either way, we're not losing shuttle service.
That's not the.
If we gotta finance it ourselves for municipal credits or maybe SMART, but shuttle service is here to stay.
Well, shuttle service is what the residents who do face transit challenges need.
Right.
So, and door-to-door pickup service at their home to their doctor's appointment, at their home to wherever they need to go. I'm sure there are some people, but I suspect it's not $3.8 million worth of people that will walk to Gratiot and M59 and from somewhere in Macomb Township and wait for that bus for 20, 30 minutes and then switch buses twice and then get dropped off somewhere else and walk that last half hour to their spot. I'm sure there's somebody, but there's not $3.8 million worth of people doing that. We owe it to our residents to provide them the best return we can. And I think that the shuttle service provides return. I think we owe that to those folks that need that help. But the big, mainline buses, just simply not a demand for that in our municipality. And I hear that at the window when people come to pay their taxes. I get to hear it all. Mostly complaints about taxes in general, but also people demanding, how come this road's not fixed? How come we don't have this? How come we don't have a park? How come we don't have various things? But I haven't had anybody ever come up to the window and say, how come I don't have a big mainline bus, that I can walk to, that I can pick me up and drive me? It just has not been a demand by residents. Roads, I hear it all the time.
I'm with you with the main line. I want to protect that shuttle service.
I understand that, yep. I think that's important to
with
us.
So, you want to go first? Go
I
ahead.
just have a quick question since we're on that topic, if I may. So if you were referring to this one individual, possibly, there might be this one individual that needs to grab that bus on the main line. They could then use the shuttle service instead, correct?
Sure, they could instead choose to be picked up at their home and driven directly to their.
So there's an alternative to that no longer being available if there was an opt-out option.
There would be. Now, I suppose if there was a really demand for it, we could have the shuttle pick them up at Gratiot and 59 and then drop them off a half hour from their destination if they prefer that service. But if they prefer to be picked up at their home and drop directly off at the store, we're happy to provide that with the shuttle service.
So I just want to be clear, because I don't know if there's confusion, because there are smart buses that are all throughout the depth of the township, and those are the shuttle buses, actually. Those are not the mainline buses. So those will still be available to the residents, because we do see those in our subdivisions.
Right.
And I don't want that to be confused with that's going away.
Right. The shuttle bus, our commitment, the commitment we have, the need we have, is that shuttle bus service. That shuttle bus that goes into to the resident's home and picks them up. It would be, if we were to move forward, and if the County Board of Commissioners were to go through the mechanisms that are required in order to allow opt-outs, and if after that point we opt out, we would have to make decisions on how to provide that shuttle bus service like the majority of communities do in Oakland County.
So we could potentially even make that better.
We could potentially make it better. Auburn Hills is proposing a smaller millage, for example, that they would dedicate for the shuttle bus service exclusively. So in theory, and we would have to have these conversations with SMART. My first thought would be to continue the existing service through Richmond Lennox, but that would be a conversation we would have to have. If that's, but the other options would have to be available. We could produce a much smaller millage to provide, I guess, more robust shuttle service, I might say. Mm-hmm. Or we may have to reach out to our neighboring communities like Shelby Township that provide shuttle bus service and perhaps coordinate with them. But there will be a shuttle bus. It may be that same exact SMART shuttle bus.
Right.
But right now, the SMART millage that they're getting, you can see the routes are in the blue lines, yellow lines, red lines. you don't see lines going into Macomb Township. So we're not, the buses that we're seeing are the shuttle bus services that are being run currently through our cooperation and our contract with Lennox and Richmond Services.
So I know you mentioned there's a few other counties that have provided this opportunity to opt out. Is this the first time it's being suggested to Macomb County Commissioners? Are you aware?
It's the first time that a municipality that I'm aware of is requesting it. There's been individuals who've requested it to county board, to commissioners individually, but I'm not aware of a municipality formally requesting it.
My last question would be, so there's a few other surrounding communities that still are within Macomb County. Have you consulted with any of them, feeling that they would support this resolution and use it to their benefit as well?
I just have to ask again, are you asking about municipalities adjacent to our community?
Yeah.
I've spoken to some elected officials in our neighboring communities, and they have asked me for a copy of the resolution,
Okay.
which I've sent to them, but they haven't told me exactly what their plans are or anything like that. I would like to also note that when in Oakland County and in Wayne County, when the smart millages are up for a vote, they pass quite comfortably. But they pass quite comfortably because the municipalities that don't benefit as much from the system have opted out. So the communities that want to be in the system are more likely to vote yes. In Macomb County, our last millage passed by 39 votes. If 20 people changed their votes, nobody would have smart service in Macomb County. Not in Warren, not in Sterling Heights, not in Roseville, not in Mount Clemens, absolutely nobody. So is it really smart to trap no voters, people who don't benefit from the system, and not allow them a chance to decide what best suits their community? Because if they want to do that, they're playing a very, very, very dangerous game. They're basically saying everybody's in or everybody's out, and they have to accept the very possibility that it could be everybody's out. So I would think that there's some advantages to letting each municipality hear from SMART, hear from their residents, and decide what really best serves their community.
Thank you.
So just want to add a couple of points. To answer your question, which you mostly answered, but we could, at the time, if we get down to the third if in Treasurer Gillette's scenario, at that point, as we're choosing whether to opt out or not, also look at whatever measure we might need to make sure that we maintain the integrity of our shuttle service or improve it. And just think about what we could do with a tenth of the millage. A 0.1 mil would bring us $380,000 in today's numbers, right? Plus, we would still get the 200,000+ of credits. So we would triple the funding we have for the shuttle service just by reducing that millage to 0.1. So on a larger scale, Macomb Township is by and large a donor community. Most of our tax money that we send out, we don't get back. And we're talking about at the state income level, at the sales tax level, the gas tax level, pretty much every level, other than maybe education, which goes directly to our school districts. But a lot of the taxes that we pay, we don't get a proportionate share back. And SMART would be one fine example of that not happening. So I'm never in favor of us being a complete donor community. I would like to see more of our resources spent right here. So I'm in favor of Treasurer Gillette's resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question through the chair to Treasurer Gillette, directly to Kathy Western's point. When she used the term murky, I think she was referring to whether or not there's linkage between the smart shuttle bus service and the overall millage. I'm getting the feel that you're not certain whether or not, if we opt out, that the shuttle service won't be pulled out from under us.
I would say this. I suppose it's possible that SMART could say, we don't want your money to provide a shuttle bus service anymore if you're not going to be part of the system. I suppose they could say, we don't want to provide you with a shuttle bus service anymore. Just like with the mill that we pay, we don't get the shuttle bus service. We've got to pay extra for that through our municipal credits and our community credits. So we can't force SMART then to continue the existing shuttle bus service. But as our supervisor indicated, we would certainly be well better off to be able to support a shuttle service with a tenth of the mill. And we are not pioneers. We are not the first people to opt out of the SMART millage. This is not the vast unknown. Again, the majority of communities in Oakland County have opted out already. 17 communities in Wayne County have opted out already. These municipalities, the majority of those that have opted out, provide some sort of shuttle service. So I don't think it's accurate to say that you have to pay $3.8 million or we're taking away your $200,000 shuttle service. And that we have no options. I think we do have options.
Through the chair, my question is the mechanics of it. Let's assume that this board passes the opt-out resolution and that the Township Board of Commissioners makes the changes to the millage for an opt-out option to be available. If in fact the shuttle bus is yanked from the mix, how do we fund the 1% millage? That would have to go on the ballot, right?
Correct. If we did a point one.
Otherwise, it would have to come from general operating funds.
Well, it'll come still from the municipal credits and community credits that would be received as directly, no longer being part of the SMART system. So we receive that amount of money from the state. But we would continue to receive SMART services through the end of the millage, which would be the end of the calendar year.
All right.
But also note that if we don't opt out, and the County Board of Commissioners does not allow opt-outs in any way, and the millage is defeated, we're in the same boat. We've got no shuttle bus. We'd get our community credits directly, I guess, but we'd have no SMART service. If the millage is defeated, everybody's in that boat. So,
And according to our knowledge pool right now, there's no subsidy that's being used to augment that 211,000.
No, the 211 is the credits that Treasurer Gillette has referred to. That was the contract we voted on last year. That is a credit that we are entitled to from the state, but because we are participating in the SMART millage, it goes to the SMART system and it sits there. And in fact, I believe a number of years ago, if some of the board members remember, that amount had never been allocated. And I think there was a large sum sitting there. I think that happened during your tenure. That never got allocated to anybody. And eventually it was all sent to Richmond Lennox they bought buses with it and some other things. So we could receive, I think our contract right now discusses going through SMART and that we're giving SMART permission to send our community credits to Richmond Lennox. I think all we would do is receive those credits directly, enter in a new contract with Richmond Lennox and pay them directly with those credits.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in favor of this incremental change. However, I will be opposed to any action item that doesn't guarantee the continuation of the shuttle service, which I think everyone's voiced.
I would agree.
So we're in agreement on at least one issue.
We agree on more than one.
Unanimity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzmano. Any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Nevers, to adopt the resolution supporting a smart millage opt-out option. Clerk Posey, will you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Treasurer Drollet?
yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Trustee Kuzmano?
Yes.
Trustee Lucido?
Yes.
Trustee Oliver?
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes. Supervisor Viviano?
Yes, that resolution is adopted. All right, moving on to item 16. We have a request to approve the credit card and commercial card policy revisions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Ms. Smith.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In front of you tonight is a request to adopt a revised commercial credit card policy, which was first adopted in 2011, and the last revision date was about 6 years ago. Most of the change is just title and language changes. along with an additional report that would be sent to the supervisor monthly. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Any questions or discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Clerk Posey, supported by Treasurer Gillette, to approve the credit card commercial card policy revisions. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Stacy. Moving on to item 17.
Mr. Chair, I move items 17 and 18 in their entirety.
Thank you, Treasurer Gillette.
Second.
So items 17 and 18 are both for purchase agreements on our Wade parcel. As everyone can recall, the parcel is split by a river, and we have a buyer for the east side of the river and a buyer for the west side. They are both in the process of doing their due diligence. They are both somewhat close and are asking, I believe, for 40, if I recall the board packet correctly, 45-day extensions. My hope is by the time the 45 days is up, they'll both be in a position to close on those sales. And I'll take any questions. Anyone? Okay, we have a motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Clerk Posey, to approve the extension and due diligence for purchase agreement dated January 11th, 2022, and for the purchase agreement dated December 15th, 2021. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 19, we have a request to award a one-year contract to Green Meadows Landscape, Inc. for landscape maintenance services in the amount of $105,640 with an option for 2 additional years. Is there a motion?
So move.
Support.
So this item, this request before you today is, as described, for landscape services. This is a continuation of our evolution of both the Parks and Rec Department and the Facilities Department. So we've made the decision to go out for bids for landscape services, which in the past has necessitated the hiring of up to 20 part-time staffers to do all of the grounds maintenance throughout the township. With this proposal that's before you, what we are really putting forward is grass cutting and mulching for the most part. A lot of the other landscape services that we would normally do, we're going to maintain in-house, which would be things like pruning trees, pulling weeds, planting flowers, replacing plants, those kind of things. But the heavy lifting of the time and labor involved in maintenance was going to be moved to a contractor, which is, again, mostly by part-time help through the summer. We think, if our projections are correct, that helped Ms. Smith prepare, along with our facilities manager and our Parks and Rec director, this move has the potential to net us about $160,000 in savings. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Supervisor, would that include like a spring cleanup? Because usually that's.
There is one spring cleanup as part of this contract that the Parks and Rec director wanted for Macomb Corners Park, but the other spring cleanup work would be done by staff.
Thank you.
Couple questions. With the 7 proposals, were they the cheapest of all of them, or were they?
This was the low bidder.
Okay.
Yes.
Was it like way off, or?
They were pretty disparate. I mean, but they quoted different services. Some were very lean in what they were proposing. Some had very all-encompassing services. Some didn't include every single property that we have. We have 27 different properties throughout the township that had to be included. Some missed those. So there were 3 that the committee interviewed. All 3 of them could have done an adequate job, but after we reviewed it, we stripped out a lot of the additional optional services. And since this is the first year of having a contractor in a long time, I wanted to try it slowly. So that's why we're just doing lawn cutting, mulch. Everything else we'll do in-house. And I think we're going to cut down on more than half the part-time staff and still hopefully come out with a good product. And it's a 1-year contract, so we can see how it goes.
Because the only thing that worries me, in having dealt with contractors before, and I don't know this contractor at all. You know, with the price of gas increasing, with the price of everything increasing, if they say halfway through the season, we're already 100,000 in, do we have a contingency plan?
Well, we still have we're going to be getting rid of some equipment. It was all aged out anyway.
Yeah.
We're going to rehab the best of our lawnmowers and keep that as a backup.
Okay.
You know, the contingency is we still have staff. We're still going to hire part-timers. And just like we have with other times when contractors have left, we're going to make do with the best we can.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Nevers, to award 1-year contract to Green Meadows Lawnscape for landscape services in the amount of $105,640. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to public comment. This is for non-agenda items, so anyone who wishes to speak on a non-agenda items may approach the microphone on the right-hand side of the room. You have a 3-minute time limit, and please state your name and address for the record. If you wish to say something and participate remotely, please digitally raise your hand, and you will be called upon. I don't see anyone present. Is there somebody? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kim Hemme, and my address is with the clerk's office, but you're going to know real quickly where I live. So I wanted to address the last BOT meeting where on item 20, it was request to authorize the supervisor to list parcel 200810400025 with our broker. So I noticed on the agenda items, for the most part, it kind of lists the locations. This did not. If I had known it was 24 and Foss, I would have been sitting there in that front row, eagerly finding out what is going on with the former Whitney Park. So when I finally had a chance to listen to the meeting, because I didn't think it concerned anything with my area, when I found out it was going to be listed, there's the floor and there's my jaw. I was very shocked. So I know things change, and that's fine. But to not, if it would have been in the agenda item, I think it would be nice to have a little consistency with where the parcels are and also the location. So that's my first comment, if we can just kind of commonize that. The other thing that I'd like to also mention is, as soon as I had a chance to listen to the meeting, because I didn't think that it would affect my area, I did contact one of the trustees, and they were wonderful explaining what was going on. I super appreciated it. But I also made a phone call the very next morning, which was last Thursday. I have yet to hear anything back, and I know that the wheels are turning behind the scenes, and that's fine. The thing is that when I hear other residents always saying how they call, or there's emails and there's no response, that's kind of just, disappointing. This is something that kind of directly affects our home life, right? So with the property being sold at 24 and Foss, formerly known as Whitney Park, that directly affects me. So I did make a phone call saying, hey, I'm very interested in the potential of putting in a bid in the property next to me. I think it would have been very nice to have a common courtesy phone call saying, hi, Kim, yes, we heard your message and we'll get it to the appropriate people. It may take some time, whatever the case may be, just something. So that was my other point. But the last thing is, just for the record, I'm very interested in buying the property next to me if possible. So thank you for listening. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is that it, Eddie?
Yes, sir.
Okay, moving on. We're going to go to board comments. Trustee Lucido.
First, want to congratulate Mr. Johnson on your new position. Thank you, and good luck to you. Mr. Box on the master plan, thank you for all your hard work. I attended a lot of those Cultivate Macomb webinars that you did during COVID, and they're very informative, and I enjoyed that. When it comes to the SMART resolution, I want to make it very clear for me. In my oath of office, I don't see spending money that we don't need to spend. But I also want to make sure that we protect what we do utilize, which would be the shuttle service. So I don't know if I mentioned that during that agenda item, but I too want to make sure that we protect what our residents actually do utilize and have access to. With not one bus stop in Macomb Township for the mainline bus service, I don't see a reason to maintain that anymore. But the shuttle service, if it's being used by our residents, I definitely will work every way I can to make sure we maintain that for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lucido. Trustee Nevers.
Yes, it's almost going to be redundant because I too would like to congratulate and welcome Mr. Johnson on board. And as Mr. Viviano said, big shoes to fill. And I want to thank Jerry personally for staying on and during this transition and delaying his retirement. Good job there, Jerry, on your years of service. And also to Josh, knowing what you came into when you accepted the job and how long the master plan had been delayed, and the work that should have been done and wasn't done, congratulations on getting it done, and that you and Jim work very well together, and I'm very happy to have you with both as department heads. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Trustee Nevers.
I'll be short.
Trustee Oliver.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Johnson, for applying. Appreciate it. Mr. Moylan, Chris Moylan, that is our new utility worker. I want to thank him also. Jerry, again, thank you for all your service. A lot of years we've sat here in the old building, and so it's good, and appreciate all the help and things you've done over and above for this community that nobody sees. I don't see the 3 a.m. call, or I don't see the 20-hour night when the water main broke, and you just think it's done, and then another one broke, or another incident happens. So, again, thank you very much. And Josh, again, Super Bowl win, so thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Trustee Oliver. Trustee Kuzmano.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank or congratulate the new hires. Look forward to working with you and make the township a better place for the community to raise our families and live our lives and ultimately retire in. I also want to just say that I appreciate the open debate, and I want the residents to know that there are no backroom deals going on. What you're seeing is open debate of these issues. There's no preordained conclusion, and we hopefully get the issues out and have a thorough discussion and then vote our conscience. And I want to thank my fellow board members for that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Kuzmano. Treasurer Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, I'm excited by our new hire. I think he's going to do a great job for our community. And I echo the sentiments that have been stated for Jerry Wanglund, whose legacy will live on in the services that we continue to receive. And we greatly appreciate that. I don't know if when you started out in the sewer and water business, it was just a pipe dream. But
So bad.
How do I kill his mic?
But now you've contributed a great amount to our community, so I greatly appreciate that, Jerry. Thank you so very much. I would like to also give a little bit of recognition to some of our employees and our staff that worked on the lawn maintenance contract issue. And this is one of those things that sounds super boring. You don't realize that there's a number of departments that come together, review the applications. We have a purchasing department, Janet, make sure that those bid opportunities are extended as widely as we can. Then there's there's employees here that review them, interview them. Then there's internal discussions when when our supervisor looks at some of the numbers and says, I'm not sure I'm comfortable making that step. Long story short, the end result is the taxpayers are the winners. That we expect that our community is going to save about $160,000 a year with this contract and this service. And the $160,000 that can be now used in other ways, it's freed up to provide other services. And there's a lot of people involved in that process just to get there. And it sounds so simple when we just vote on it, but something as simple as that lawn contract takes a little while to get there. And I really appreciate the people that help make that happen and the commitment to looking for ways to save the residents of this community, the taxpayers of this community, money. And I know our supervisor and our team here did that with this one example. So thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Dott. Clerk Posey.
I too just want to welcome the 2 new employees that we hired this evening. Welcome to our team, and I look forward to working with you. So on to clerking business. We are rapidly approaching the 2022 primary election, although it's probably not in your wheelhouse. It's inundating me currently. So I just want to remind everybody in the township that we are always recruiting individuals to represent the township in our precinct locations. We recruit nearly 400 people to help us administer the election on that day. There's no experience necessary. We are willing and able to train every single one of you. And if you are interested in doing such thing, we are recruiting seniors, teachers, students, anyone. Just reach out to our website, which is leading me to my next comment. We're excited to launch our new election website. You can find it at mtvoter.org. We have reconstructed the entire website for elections so that it's user-friendly and everything you need to know about an election is at your fingertips. So you can find an application on that website, or you could just call the office and we'll happily send one to you. So keep in mind we're recruiting. If you know of anybody, please send them our way. And I look forward to seeing everybody on Election Day. That's all.
Thank you, Clerk Posey. Like everyone else, I want to welcome Kevin. We're looking forward to having you here, looking forward to what you're going to bring to our township. I wasn't kidding about the big shoes. I know we all think highly of Mr. Wanglin, and I think his role is, with no disrespect to all of our great department heads, is probably the most important role we have that is the least glamorous in what he does. So that is a critical function of our township. Without it, without him doing the above and beyond job that he's been doing all these years, we wouldn't have the success as a community that we've had. So thank you. And I'm not quite ready to say goodbye, so I'm not going to cry. I also want to kind of touch on the smart millage option. I just want to emphasize one thing. This board is committed to both being fiscally conservative and responsible, but also to providing the services that we know that our community needs. And in no way, shape, or form are we ever going to shirk our responsibility to provide services to any of our seniors or disabled or anyone else who might need transportation services. So it's one of the many responsibilities that we will take seriously if this particular measure ever goes to the point where we're considering opting out. So I want to make that point. Josh, congratulations on the master plan. I know it was a long time coming. I think it's great. It's a great roadmap for our community, and I know he's going to be mad at this next thing, but I want to congratulate him on his engagement. Congratulations, Josh.
Thank you.
And I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag too early, but Josh bestowed upon me a special honor, and yes, I will give you away at the wedding. And lastly, I just want to state again that we are recruiting for a new Macomb, Clinton Macomb trustee member. Macomb Township finally gets to appoint a 4th member to the board. We are looking for anybody who might be interested in serving in that position. There is quite a bit of financial and operational responsibility that board has. And if anybody who is interested can see the website and apply online to my office, and we would love to talk to you. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I beat
Support.
him.
Any discussion? Motion by Clerk Posey, supported by Trustee Nevers to adjourn the meeting. Members, please vote.
Pete nailed it. 8:05.
That motion passes 7-0. Motion, meeting is adjourned.